I'm going to do a recap of the round 7 of Hungarian League. I beat the Grandmaster Jozsef Horvath, whose rating just dropped recently a little bit, but he was almost 2600 back then. And I managed to beat him. I never beat him with the black pieces before. Actually, I wasn't expecting him to play 1c4. So I was like, okay, should I play e5 in the first move? Should I play knight f6? My opponent played knight c3. I went for an English, knight f3, knight c6, and of course here white has a lot of moves. He went for this a3, and which is like, as you guys can see, it's basically a reverse Sicilian. Against a3, since I'm not an e4 player, so I don't really play like Sicilian as white. I didn't want to play d5. What other options I have? I could go g6. See, this is exactly what I did here, and basically, this is still a Sicilian. Don't get me wrong. It's just with reverse colors basically, but maybe I'm not intending to play d5. So maybe I want to keep everything. I want to keep the center closed, which gives a little bit slower play. Which I preferred against him because, of course, he is a Sicilian player. He also plays Sicilian with white and with black as well, many lines. So in my opinion, he had more knowledge in Sicilian in general. So I didn't want to enter a territory where he has, you know, like more insights than me. And he played d3, which was kind of weird. I mean, d3, it was still not weird. e3 was a little bit weird. I think g3. Developing the bishop in, you know, like in the dragon way, I think it's a little bit better. I went castle short, bishop e2. Now I know like d5 should be the way, since as I mentioned, I'm not like a Sicilian player as white, so I didn't want an open center. I played rook e8. And actually here he was clever. He played queen c2 first. Because I wasn't sure, during the game I wasn't sure if this is beneficial for me. I played d6, played h3. It was also somewhat prophylactic, because I still played bishop f5, and after e4 I don't have bishop g4. In case he went castle shot, of course in this case h3 didn't make any sense. e4 is actually like, after d takes c4, I wasn't sure how I want to recapture here. If I want to play knight e4, I wasn't sure at first if bishop d3 is annoying or not. It can be annoying, because if you take on c3, he goes bishop takes f5. And the problem is not that we lost the bishop pair. The problem is we can't really move this knight anywhere. Of course, we don't want this. This is weaker than this for sure, because this is in our king side, and the knight can easily, you know, like exploit this square. Like during the game, I was like, okay, what if I take with bishop? Knight takes, since, you know, like all I need is this bishop, because this bishop is very hard to counter. White has the bishop pair, but my knight is actually quite annoying on e4. See, he goes bishop d3. First of all, we can also play knight c5. And the knight is a very nice looking knight here, and we can play a5, a4 just to, you know, like summon this knight and gaining space in the queen side. Or we can just simply play queen d7, and of course if white is trading off everything, we have to be better here in this endgame. This bishop is just simply stronger than this bishop, and you know white is having some weak squares here. So this is why he played e4 himself. Now, of course, a3 finally made sense. We don't have access to this square. I wasn't sure where to put the bishop. Actually, I was seriously considering this, and this square as well. I played bishop d7, and I'm going to explain why. He went castle short. Now I played a5. If, let's say, we can push a4 without, you know, losing this guy, that would be huge. I just realized this is not the only way to get our knight on e6. This is also a way. So actually, I don't really need this square for my knight. my intentions were really like knight h5 and pushing f5 and knight f4. I wanted to play knight h5 here, but I didn't want to allow b4. For pushing a4, this bishop is huge. So this bishop will be key to push a4. This is exactly what happened in the game. So he didn't want to lose time with b3 and then rook b1, b4. He played rook b1 right away. But in this case, I had access to plan what actually happened in the game, and I played knight d4. I kind of ruined my structure a little bit just to get access to a4. So this was like, I'm giving something, but I'm taking something away. So, but I was like, okay, this pawn structure is not that bad. But I mean, pushing a4 is huge because white usually wants to play in the queen side. In this type of structures, white is usually pushing in the queen side, and black is trying to push in the king side, like in a real King's Indian way. What I was also considering is it was knight h5, and let's say in case he pushes b4, he takes, and then knight f4 maybe we can take his bishop, and then pushing f5. Sometimes if you're like aiming for a win, sometimes changing the pawn structure is not the worst idea. Of course, you have to make sure that pawn structure will be at least decent for you. You don't have to just sacrifice your pawn structure only because you want to win the game. Here, of course, I got something in return, and of course, I put him in a position where like he could go wrong, because there are like a lot of knight moves, a lot of possible ways to handle this position. The knight could jump here, knight could jump here, knight could jump back to d1, and both leads to a different structure, because knight b5, of course, it will allow bishop takes b5. I mean, knight b5, I think it was just I don't think it was the right call, to be honest, because the knight sometimes it's getting stuck on b5. Actually, it ran into some maneuvers what I had in the game. I think knight d1 was better, and maybe f4, knight f2. I think this is how I would have handled the position. I would have just regroup a little bit here. Of course, I'm pushing a4. This is exactly what I was playing for, and maybe then we will push c5, b4, and then as I said, he will try to pushing the king side. Knight b5 was a little bit reckless. I didn't really like this, to be honest. And I played the a4. Of course, this is exactly what I wanted. From now on, white doesn't really have access to b4. He can still make the move, but then he will just create an extra pawn island on a3, and he didn't really get anything in return. d4 is hanging, but actually e4 is also hanging. I mean, not e4, but the d4 knight. So we have answered to knight takes d4. Thanks to this discover move, knight d4 was never really the case. This is why he played bishop g5. Of course, now knight takes d4 is threatening because he created a pin, and we will not have access to knight takes c4 in case of knight d4. Now, what my first intention, I wanted to play queen b8. Queen b8 looks like a very nice move, because we protect d6 pawn, and maybe c6 will be a thing, and in case of knight takes d4, we just take on e4. But first of all, I was like, okay, I'm not even sure that c6 is threatening at all. Let's say he makes a random move like king h1, or he can actually make like a useful move like rook f1 or whatever. Like c6, knight takes d4, knight takes c4, knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and he has bishop d3. The other thing I didn't really like about queen b8, even though it's a very nice looking move, is, let's say, what if he goes back to f4? This queen on b8 looks a bit, I don't know, weird. Why don't we just take now on b5? And this is exactly what I did in the game. C takes b5, and now I had a very nice move, which was rook e5. And now it's a double attack. We attack g5 when we attack b5 in the same time. Actually, white probably can't avoid losing material here. If he cannot avoid losing material, of course he will not take on f6. If he took on f6, we just take back bishop f6, and then he will probably lose b5 sooner or later. This is why he pushed f4. That was his probably like his best shot in the game. And now I actually made a smart move. I played rook c5. I didn't take on b5 first. Of course I could. Whether the queen goes to d2 or d1, it doesn't really matter. It's still a worse square than c2. Because why? Because if he goes to d1, then his rooks are not connected. And of course, he at some point he would like to double up on the f file. Because from now on, of course, since he's losing his pawn on b5. Of course, now on white doesn't wanna. It actually everything just changed. White doesn't want to play on the queen side. White wants to play on the king side. So for that, actually, if he goes to d1, I make him lose a little bit of time. Queen d2 is also a kind of a win because the queen is not doing anything on d2 really, because I mean for f5 he doesn't really need this queen. But from now on we can free our rook maybe, because the queen is not targeting a4 at all. And I didn't take on b5 right away. This is why I played h6. In case of bishop h4, now rook c5. Now we can see the point of rook c5, because all of a sudden we have access to a next tactic, which is knight takes c4. This was my intention when I played rook c5, that after h6, basically I thought I'm forcing white to take on f6. This is exactly what I wanted to do, because he's losing b5, but without his Darcer bishop, his counterplay actually it will be just toothless without the Darcer bishop, because whenever he pushes f5, this is the only way to get some sort of like progress in the king side. But without his Darcer bishop, he's just giving up on all these dark squares around f5. He's a dynamical positional player. He likes to get counterplay. He likes to have something to play for. He's not a player who will just like try to defend a pawn down endgame and hope like, he will just like hope that he will survive in a 6-hour game. If he's left without counterplay, I mean, of course, like so many other players, he can collapse. I thought bishop f6 is a must because of this motive. But when he played bishop h4, I was like it took me some time to process, like, what the hell, like I'm just winning a pawn. I'm winning a pawn and I'm taking your best like your most active piece in the same time. And I just realized so much better scenario for white than the bishop takes f6, because in both scenarios I'm taking his bishop and I'm taking a pawn, right? So if he took on f6, we just take bishop f6. It's very important to take with the bishop, because if you take with queen, after rook, one of the rooks goes to c1, and all of a sudden we don't have we have access to rook takes b5, but also white gets something in return, gets c7 pawn. This is why we have to take bishop takes f6. We have to take with the bishop, and then we will take b5, and this bishop will left without counterplay, like for the rest of the game. So this is why bishop h4 was a clever move, because if you take on e4, d takes e4, queen takes h4, white gave up on his Darcer bishop, we won a pawn, like we won material, but first of all, this guy is protected. But look at this bishop now. All of a sudden, it has a diagonal. It has a diagonal, and if the bishop will get access to this square, all of a sudden it has some target. It can target b7, it can target f5 after he pushed f5. So all of a sudden he has counterplay. Of course, now all these dark squares are a little bit sketchy. After, let's say, we push g5, we can destroy his dark squares. But of course, we are also giving up on light squares. So like it was so difficult to understand if who gets more benefited by like in kind of g5, That's why, this is why knight takes c4 was a mistake. I shouldn't have taken on e4, but I just couldn't resist. I knew that rook takes b5 is probably the move. But I just really wanted to avoid this type of positions where I'm actually letting this bishop leave. He's going to completely ignore the queen side from now on. Of course, we're up a pawn on the queen side, so he will just put the bishop back to f2. He will push g4 h4. He closes his eyes and he's just pushing his pawns. And this is exactly what I tried to avoid, because that gives him a very easy play. Now, fortunately, he had this move, rook bc1. He will get rid of this, rid of my very active rook on c5. And after we change it, we change the rooks. All of a sudden, this pawn becomes weak, and also the bishop will have access to this square. And all of a sudden, his bishop will be very very active. I took on c1. I'm not even sure what was the right move. I checked the game with Angie, not very deep though, but I think rook takes c1 was a wrong move. I wasn't sure if I have to allow rook takes c5 or should I take, but because if I take, then I make this guy weak. But if I allow the rook takes c5, this c7 pawn might not be weak. But the problem is, let's say I'm just showcasing. From now on, look what he has. He has access to e5, and all of a sudden this is a little bit weak. I took with rook. This surprised me. I think he should have taken with queen. Surprisingly, I think it was very important to keep the rook on the queen side, because this square. This pawn on f4 is very important. He had to make sure that he is just keeping as many eyes on f4 as possible, because later on I might push g5. I might push. I might do this, and I can target f4. And now I came up with a very interesting idea, which was unfortunately wrong. I pushed d3. This was the main reason I took on c1. I'm just giving up on my pawn, which is like, we can call this d4 as a poison pawn. Obviously, he can't take with queen because of two different reasons. This is hanging, but more importantly, this is hanging. He can't lose f4. So my point was, I had very direct reasons why I pushed d3. Not only that I wanted to improve my bishop's diagonal, and I intended to target these guys. I played bishop d4 check, king h1. He could go king h2. In case of king h2, I would have gone bishop f2. And unluckily for him, the only move here is king h1. It's king h1. Because rook f1 is losing, thanks to queen g3 check, king h1, and bishop e3. The next move we'll take on f2. F4, and we'll create like huge mating threats on h2. So he cannot do that. The only move here is king h1, and this will probably transpose to the game. So he went king h1, and I went queen g3. This was my calculation. This was my line. What I tried to aim from the very beginning. And basically from when I pushed d3, when I pushed this pawn move, I kind of overlooked the move what he made here. Here it was bishop c4. I couldn't believe my eyes that this move is actually working. It was crazy, because bishop e3 is threatening, right? Again, from the same exact reason, bishop f1 is not working. In a king h2 line, our bishop was on f2. That's why I said the lines can transpose to each other, because now we just go bishop e3, bishop e3. Same exact reason, we'll take on f4 and we will win the game. And rook e1, the problem with rook e1 was bishop takes b2, because now we kind of deflect the queen from d2. He can take because the rook is hanging. I played bishop e3. Yeah, he played queen d3. He also had rook c3 as decode mentioned. Actually, we might have queen takes h3. G takes bishop d2, no? I played rook f8 because I wanted to get access to queen takes f4, because after rook f1, move the queen somewhere, we protect f7. That's very important. So this is exactly what happened. He played bishop d5. Bishop d5 was not a bad move objectively, but it allowed me to like stay in the game, not like a draw immediately. He could make I think a draw immediately by rook c3 was the right move. So now the only way to avoid losing my piece is queen e1, but then after queen f1 he's actually forcing us to trade, you know, pieces here. Because again, from the same reasons, you know, this is this was a line he had to like calculate that actually it's working for him. So now it's equal material, but now we have a passer. He is a passer, but it's hard to understand which one is going to be stronger. But I think white can't really lose this position. He was like in a serious time trouble. So he played bishop d5, and now I took on f4. Rook f1 and queen g5, and this was the point of bishop f8 or rook f8 that we protected f7. So it was a prophylactic move. Of course, he took on b7. And now I was like, okay, where should I put my bishop? I wanna see my bishop here, but I just realized, what if I put my bishop here? Nothing, right? I could actually do that. I could play bishop f4 and put the bishop, and all of a sudden we have access to a lot of mating nets. Actually, we have access to 0 mating nets here. Just goes b3, takes, bishop e5, and he just pushes a4. And all right, who will deal with this guy on the a file? I don't know. The problem is we don't have access to this. We don't have access to this square, because the queen and rook make sure that nothing will happen in the king side. So this is why I didn't put my bishop this direction. I rather kept my bishop on this direction. I saw a very funny move, which I kind of like. Bishop d4. I was actually considering this move, and because queen takes d4, we have queen takes b5, and we kind of win material here. But I just realized that bishop white wants to play b3 anyway. So why would I choose this square over this, or over the most stable c5 or b6? Of course, I'm not going to put my bishop here. And now my only, you know, like struggle was bishop c5 or bishop b6. And I chose bishop c5 because of 2 reasons. You will see in the game why bishop c5 was very important. I kind of you know, visualize this type of things, this type of maneuvers and motives, and also sometimes I'm targeting a3. This was basically the main reason. He played bishop d5 first. I played queen e5. So I think what he should have done, I mean, he should have just, you know, like realized that he will never win this game. So why pushing b3? Why keeping the queens on the board? He should have played queen c3. And queen takes c3, b takes c3. And it's very easy to like understand that we'll never have this. We can never really take this guy. Okay, of course we can take it. We're not like getting damaged by that. But the problem is, yeah, we are even. Wait, we can play bishop a5. I didn't even see this, but I think this has to be a draw. He didn't want to lose material. I understand that, but in time trouble, I think this was a little bit smarter. And he played b3. I was actually very happy to see this move, because now on, white can't really exchange the queens anymore. The bishop is a little bit more active, and now I played king g7. Of course, he can't really take on f7 with if he takes with rook. Of course, he will get in trouble. I'm not so sure if it's mate, but we definitely win a piece. Worst case, so he couldn't really do that. If he took bishop f7, yeah, actually, yeah, sorry, d5, yes, d5 is over. D5 is over. Yeah, it was d5. Now I remember. Yeah, exactly. D5 is over. because now you know the queen is not protecting this guy anymore, and we just win f7. Here comes the point of bishop c5, f5. Of course he has to take that. I'm not so sure what else he can do. At e5, rook f5, because yeah, he couldn't take, because this is maybe still not mate, because he has rook f1. This is the classical mate, right? This is the classical mate. He played bishop f3, and now, as sharpshooter showcased, haha, d5. Look at that. This was a huge point of bishop c5. Now look at this. Look at this plan. All of a sudden, little man is coming back to d6 and just creating immediate threats on h2. Of course, there are a lot of things to blunder now. Of course, and now it was move 35, and he was like, he massively tried to, you know, like simplify the position, but it was not possible, because let's say rook c1 intending to play queen c3 in case of bishop d6. This was the first thing to blunder, because there will be no queen trade. There will be no queen trade. We have d4 and then queen h2 mate. So I think he made the right move. Rook d1, bishop d6, king g1, and now I was like, I couldn't believe what I did. I wanted to repeat moves. I was like on 6 minutes. He was like 50 seconds, or not 50 seconds, like 1 minute 10 seconds, something like that. I can't remember, but he was like very low on time, and I couldn't calculate the win here. I'm not so sure if there is a win, but we have like very nice continuations, and I wanted to repeat moves. First with bishop c5, bishop d6, and then we'll get, and I only have to make like, you know, one move to 40. So let's say bishop c5 check, king h1, bishop d6, king g1 check, king f1, and now I only have to make this move 40. I have to make one move, and then I can take a look around and I can calculate the win, if there is a win. How much time he had, it was completely irrelevant, because he has only moves. He doesn't, you know, like he doesn't have to make like difficult defending moves. If the position is winning, he can't really do anything about that. So that's why I wanted to repeat moves, and I just realized, oh my god, he can go king f1. Like, what the hell? There will be no repeating moves, because the king f1 is actually better on f1 immediately. Okay, I played queen g3. It was a clever move. Queen c3 check, because queen f2 was threatening mate. d4, and now I think, yeah, now he made queen d3 was losing what he played. It was move 40, and I'm not even sure what was the right move here. I remember Engine was giving, yeah, he had to take on d4. He had to go for this, and this is probably a draw. We are exchange up, and Angie is saying that he had to go for this endgame. He played queen d3, and I think he just overlooked the move I had, because yeah, and I made the only win here, rook e5. This was the only move. We couldn't allow rook e1. Rook e1 was a very annoying move, and now he played rook c1. But probably the only move was rook c1. I was like, okay, the position should be winning. It's winning, but the winning plan is basically a plan I would never find. I found the first couple of moves. So the problem is, for white, this king, he can never really play king g1. For example, here, the problem with king g1, he's just getting mated, or he's losing his queen. After rook e1, queen e1, if he goes king h2, this is like a forced mate. g3, queen g3, king h1, queen h2, this is mate. If he goes queen f1, we go d3 check, and we win the queen. So he never has king g1. He can never really bring the queen anywhere. So if let's say he makes a queen move, just let's say he wants queen f2, we immediately push d3. This is the move we immediately make, and from now on, queen h2 is just unstoppable. Queen h2, queen h3, because he can never take the pawn. This is mate. The bishop can move, but it doesn't make so much sense, because we always go queen h2 or queen f4 check. Rook c1 was a very nice defending move, because many cases he wants to take the bishop. My problem was, in case of rook e3 would be like a very nice move, but the problem is queen c4, and this is not mate. We can take like a lot of things here, but it's not going to be mate. So what I did here, I played h5. You would think, okay, why would I play h5? First of all, I thought that bishop b4 is winning, because of rook e1 check. The problem is he takes the pawn, and now he pins our rook. So this is why I thought, okay, I play h5 and maybe put the king on h6 or h7. Yeah, the problem with king h7, first of all, he started to push the pawn. This is his only chance. And now after bishop b4, my problem was, this was the first line I calculated, and I thought this is winning. But the problem is rook takes c7, king g8, king h8. Yeah, king g8 is always losing by bishop d5 check. So from now on, we can only move our king in this zigzag, on the dark squares. So king h8, rook c8 check, because yeah, rook e1 is just it's a threat he can't stop. So he has to give checks. We go all the way to d8, and I thought this is winning. First of all, I was stupid because of multiple reasons here. Not only like, I think maybe even queen takes z4, and he can take b4, and now he protected e1. But there was another thing I completely overlooked. Rook c8 check. And the problem is that if he take, he has like a discovery check, and he wins the queen. Okay, I played h5. Opponent played a5. It's his only plan. He wants to push b6. He tries to like get some open files, and maybe the queen will get some counterplay. I played g5 here, but it turned out the only win here, it's h4. Yeah, it's very important to mention that the bishop from now on is not moving because of queen f4, queen takes c1. I'm still not sure if I understand the point here. So let's say he goes a6, whatever. Queen h2. Now queen h1 check is threatening. Whenever we go queen h2, he will go king f2, and now queen f4 for some reason. And the point of making the king to f2 is that he doesn't have rook e1 now, because of queen g3 check. That was the whole point, because if you play queen f4 right away, if we leave g3 square, which is not h2, he always has this move. And now finally, if he can get the rook on e1, he survives. And if the rook goes somewhere, let's say rook d1, for example, I don't know. Now we go rook e3 for some reason. And this is winning. I'm still not sure why. What I played, it was not winning. It was actually a draw. I played g5. Makes a lot of sense, right? Because we are trying to, target f3 bishop. And by that, if we can make this bishop go away, then all of a sudden we are opening up the space around his king, and it's just over immediately. Not even mentioning, like not only we are opening up the space, but we will have access to this check on f4, and finally we can win the rook. He pushed b6, only move, and c takes b6, a takes b6, and the problem is, from now, if you took on b6, until the pawn was on g6, this was just a free pawn, right? Because the king had such a safe square on h6. But from now on, all of a sudden, this king is a little bit naked, And I push g4, but this is basically a draw by force. Unbelievable, right? H takes g4, H takes g4, and b7. Gf3, queen takes f3. And now, unfortunately, we have to trade queens. I didn't see anything better. I had to take gf3, and I played bishop a7. And from the very beginning, when I played g5, I was calculating this line until that endgame when I'm piece up. I was calculating, and I was like, okay, that's winning. That's winning. It turned out it's a draw, but I just completely overlooked, and I couldn't believe my eyes that he can actually trade these pawns down. He has one easy draw, and in general the position is a draw, but he had one easy draw, which I completely overlooked from the beginning. Is rook c7 check, king f6, and rook d7. And basically we can't prevent b8 queen. We can't prevent b8 queen. Unbelievable. We can't overprotect d4. That's the problem. If the rook would be here, that's easy because after b8 we just take with bishop because this is hanging. This is protected. But rook b8, rook b5. Let's say he just wins. And of course, rook takes. He takes the bishop, and voila, there we are. Yeah, he didn't see that he played rook a1. I was like, oh, alrighty, that's different. And now I played rook d7, and he blundered here. Unbelievable. If he played rook b1, this is the endgame I tried to showcase. The king will get here. Okay, we can also bring the king closer. And actually, this is a draw. I just couldn't believe. Yeah, according to IGA 000, I'm pretty sure in practice this is such a difficult endgame to hold. But okay, he played king d3, and I took on b7. And he actually missed. I don't think he missed this. Of course, it is very easy to see. He missed this. At rook g1, and wherever I go, he can't take here because of bishop a7 check, and I checked the rook. So yeah, I was kind of lucky here. He was also lucky that nothing was working after g5. But yeah, and of course I went king f7. Doesn't matter. King f6 was easy. Was as winning. Like didn't really matter. I went king f7 because rook h1. Of course, that was a tricky move. Now 2 moves are winning as well. Rook b4 is winning, and bishop e5. What I played. But from now on, if you can, you know, like bring the bishop back, this is just over. Like I will just show you guys the game. It was. How did I play? I played bishop g7, I think. I played f5. Yeah, it didn't really matter from this point. Just easily winning. And yeah, here we resigned.